Java database connectivity. And let us start with the introduction of this particular part. Java database connectivity, as we know that it is a kind of an API that is required so that a Java application could be connected with a particular database. We know that there are several types of database, and out of that, we are going to connect any one of the database to our Java application. We need to write certain kind of steps that are required to connect our backend part or the database. But we know that at the same time, there is a kind of a procedure to be followed while we are working on this particular entire mechanism. And that process is actually devised into certain kind of step, or it is actually a step-by-step procedure. Before we get into this particular step-by-step procedure, we need to understand that the architecture of JDBC or the Java database connectivity, that what exactly the kind of things which are available here and how exactly we can make use of all these artifacts in order to get that particular procedure correctly done. And so that a communication in between a Java application and the database has to be done, right? So typically, if we talk about the part of JDBC, it is a kind of a procedure, a kind of an API, the application programming interface, that gives us the idea that if I try to write a kind of a Java application, and if I really want to connect that with a particular database, in this particular case, we are going to consider Relational Database Management System, RDBMS, and MySQL is what exactly the database we are going to connect with. Now, we are already aware of the fact that the database is already getting operated on local host, and which is making use of a kind of a MySQL community server. That particular MySQL community server, which is making use of local host, and it is already executing, the process is already executing on the port 3306. So that particular IPN port, in order to create a kind of a socket for communication, we are going to make use of as localhost 3306, right? And that is what exactly the URL that we are going to create with the help of JDBC, and we are going to connect to that. We know that our database is going to have multiple users. Whatever user that we are making use of, its ID and password is also important. Okay. So keeping all these things in mind, we need to have, for connection purpose, the connection driver as well. Now, if I get into the part of the actual things which are required, right? As I said, the part of database, which we have already talked about, JDBC driver that we require. Now, there are four types of driver. Essentially, the JDBC that offers, there are multiple kind of vendors available, and out of that we can select any one kind of driver for our communication, right? If I want to connect that particular database, right, MySQL database, we do have the JDBC ODBC bridge drivers available. Normally we term them as type 1 drivers. Then we have the exact kind of understanding, right? We have native API drivers as well. We can call them as type 2 drivers. We do have the part of network operated drivers. We can list them as type 3 drivers. And finally, we have the pure Java driver or thin driver. We can call them as type 4 drivers, right? So that type 4 driver is in fact we are going to make use of, right? It is available, right? Open to all. We can download and make it available at any point in place, right? So that particular driver is required. We are already making use of our Java development kit, right? JDK, which is already available with us, and Eclipse is what exactly the ID that we are going to make use of. So these are the kind of tools that are in fact required whenever you are going to perform the part of Java database connectivity, right? And all these things effectively, if they are available to us, we can understand that now the Java application that we are going to create, right? Now, with the help of a package, which is exactly called as a SQL package, there are multiple kind of classes and multiple kind of objects, right? Multiple kind of things which are available that we can make use of from the SQL package. And once you start making use of all these things from SQL package, you will get to know that now writing that particular API has become more easier. Now, this is what exactly the support from Java, right? The packages, that we know that the actual strength of this language is its packages. So whenever these packages are concerned, we are going to actually work on the part of these packages, make use of SQL package and the related kind of things, and we can establish that particular entire procedure or API that we are talking about. So type 4 driver will make use of, it will follow that particular database URL and will try to connect to your user, one of the user whose ID and password you are going to pass. Once you do that, the next thing that you can do is you can actually think of this particular driver, right? Registering this particular driver. The very first step that we are going to perform is this driver that we are going to make use of, right? Type 4 driver. We are going to register that particular driver first. Once you register that particular driver, your entire application will get to know that, yes, this is what exactly the driver I'm going to communicate with, right? So the drivers, whether it is compatible or not, whether it is possible to connect the database through this driver or not, right? For that, we need to have that particular understanding. One of the class, that is driver manager, is going to give us that understanding, right? With this registered driver, your driver manager will pick this up and will try to establish a kind of a connection, which is the second step of our API that we are going to write, the Jdbc API, right? And once you establish the connection with a typical database user, later you can think of actually working with the database. We know that there are multiple operations that you can perform with the database. And these operations that we are talking about are most possibly the create, read, update, and delete kind of operations, right? So CRUD operations I'm actually talking about. And whenever you are talking about the CRUD operations, create, read, update, and delete, right? You can actually put up all these things in your database. You can interact with your database by making use of this. All the actions that you want to perform, you can perform herein. And with this, you can typically put up all these steps one by one. And after putting them up, you can actually have database connections. For that, we require either a statement, prepared statement, or callable statement you can make use of, right? With the uh, understanding of all these classes for interaction, you can actually fire queries, right? Execute queries on the database. You can actually get the result. You can insert data. You can get the data back. The result set kind of classes are available so that we can actually put up our data. Not only that, there are multiple other things which are available as well. Like if you want to update the database or the table data, or if you want to delete a certain kind of data as well. So all these operations are actually possible. So let us understand how exactly we can do that right now. This architecture that we have talked about, how database, how my driver manager is going to understand the driver, how it is going to establish through driver manager that connection, and how the communication is going to happen within two different parties by making use of this procedure. Let us understand that as well. So it is essential for us to understand this programmatically as well. We have let me drive you through that particular mechanism. Let's go to the part of the actual database wherein we can think of any particular database and any particular table created. For the understanding purpose, I'm going to make use of a student database, which is already available here. There are multiple tables that we have created inside student database. One of the table that I'm going to make use of is the student detail, right? So if I select everything from that, so I have given the first name, last name, and address, and contact of that particular student, right? So it is just a kind of a database having multiple tables. One of the tables, student detail, that we are going to follow. And how to communicate with this database and this typical table, we are going to understand that with the help of the Java database connectivity. We'll write the entire API, right? As an example, we'll write the entire API and we'll try to understand how to deal with these things. So same thing we have done with the part of the ID that we are going to make use of, right? So we are going to make use of Eclipse. No doubt you can make use of STS, IntelliJ, NetBeans, or Sublime Text, or any other kind of ID that you want to make use of. A Java application is created, and the most important thing that we have made available on the actual class path, and those are, you can see that on my build path, my connector is already available. That is MySQL connector. You can call that as the type 4 driver, right? 8.0.30 is what exactly the version of it. And my JDK is already available. Right now, I'm making use of JDK 21, right? So make sure that these two things are available on your build path. These are the most important things, right? So we know that the API that we are going to write right now, step by step, it has to be written in such a manner that it should create that kind of connection with the database. And that is something which is required. Okay. So the first step, as I mentioned, we need to perform is we need to register our driver. Our type 4 driver has the name, right? Let me write register type 4 driver, or if you want to write any kind of comment you can write, but make sure that you're writing all these things in main. And if there are certain exceptions, we need to handle them as well. Let's make use of the try catch block so that in advance we get to know that if there are certain kind of exceptions, right, we should be able to handle them as well. So let me take an exception part here, and let's print that particular exception so that the entire idea about that exception will get through. Okay. So whatever crucial part, we always write that particular part in the catch mechanism, the exception handling mechanism, so that later in future, if we get any exception, we could easily handle that. Okay. So registering the driver, I'm going to make use of the inbuilt class and its method, which is exactly for name, right? By name, we can register the driver and we have to register the type 4 driver, right? So by name, you can register your driver so that your driver manager will get to know that, okay, this is what exactly the kind of driver that we are going to make use of, right? So let me write the name of that. You can, as it is, write the name of that driver. The name of the driver is com dot mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. This is the name of the type 4 driver actually. Okay. And this driver by name will be registered now, right? So we have the driver. We already have our connector available that will help me to communicate with the backend part. Let's understand, right? So with this connector, how exactly with this driver, how exactly we are going to get in touch with our actual database, right? Database is available here, no doubt. So we need to establish a connection. In order to have this connection, we exactly have the connection method available in our driver manager. But remember, once connection is established, a connection object will be given back. So we need to handle that particular object as well, right? So you can create a connection, no doubt. You can create this particular connection, right? We can establish a connection. As a second step, we can establish a connection. Okay, you establish that connection, no worries. But once you establish the connection, we know that a connection object will be returned back. Okay. So driver manager's method, which is exactly called as get connection method, will make use of it. It takes 3 arguments. We'll pass it for our current database and the user, and we'll try to establish that connection. Let's get that connection object back. Say for example, I write connection con equals driver manager and the method is get connection. Okay, so you can see here the get connection method is available here. Connection and all these inbuilt kind of things which are available in your SQL part. Let's try and make use of them, right? And if you import all these things in a proper sense, they will be available to you. But we know that there are 3 things required. The URL that we already talked about, the ID and password. The ID is definitely root. In my case, it is root and 12345. No doubt that might be different in your case, so you can make use of it. Okay. And yes, one more interesting thing which is here, which is now the URL. Okay. So this URL is actually going to give us the connection with our actual part of the database, which is simply jdbc colon mysql colon double slash localhost. And as I said, the port number that I'm going to make use of is 3306 slash the name of your database is expected here, right? If you carefully observe, the name of your database is a student. You can see this. The name of your database is student. And these are the fixed steps, right? So the connection URL, if you ever get the doubt in your mind that how many arguments are there, in my get connection method, there are three. One is the connection URL, other one is the ID, last one is the password, right? So this ID and password belong to your user, right? Database user. Okay. Next, after registering the driver and establishing a connection, now I need to move ahead, right? Before we move ahead, we need to understand that this particular kind of a connection object that we have created, right? So in order to execute this particular part, or in order to work on this particular connection object, right? So we can't do that directly, right? We have to create a kind of a statement or prepared statement or callable statement, you can call it as, right? So there are multiple things, but right now we'll make use of statement. We'll create statement for this particular connection, and then we will try to execute whatever our query on this particular created statement, right? So the next step essentially is, because you cannot make use of the connection object directly, we need to create statement. Let's create statement. Okay, so the essential thing is I'm going to write statement. Again, that is available in the same package. Statement, you can write any object name. I'm writing our object, connection object is con. Let's create statement over this. Okay. Now, once my statements are created, import the respective package for your statement as well. Okay. Now, once this is done, the next thing that I'm going to do is, once my statement is created, now you can write any particular query, right? Whatever query you want to write, you can write, and you can perform that on your database. The simple thing that I'm going to write, my query is, suppose you write as a string, you can write your query. Suppose I'm writing string S1 as select everything from, what is the name of our table that we have created? Student detail. So let's write student detail. We know that select star from student detail or any table means that select star from student detail or any particular table means that it will take the entire data from student detail and it will try to get us back that entire data, right? Once you fire the query, will be available to us. But in order to handle that, we require a kind of a mechanism. And that mechanism or that class is exactly called as your result set. Now, what is the job of result set? Whenever you execute any particular query, that query will be executed, whatever data that will be given back to you, right? Now that will be available in your result set. Always remember. So the next part for me is to execute the query with the help of your result set. We'll try to save it, and with the help of statement, we'll try to execute it, right? So let's execute whatever query that we have written. So I'm going to write after this comment my result set, and let's write the result set as now whatever statement which is operating on the given connection, right? So this statement will execute a query. There are multiple methods available, but as of now, we are only executing our query, and that executing query will be our S1, right? S1, we know that it's a string, but a query is written inside it. Okay. So this query by default will be executed where? On my table, right? I'll get the entry, I'll execute all those things, and I'll get back. Now, getting back this entire data which is available in result set, how to deal with this? This entire data which is available in result set, how to deal with this particular part? No worries. We have multiple things available in result set, and we will try to make use of them, right? So we need to understand how many things are there available. As of now, you can see that there are two rows available, right? One is for Amar Kumar and another one is for Arun Kumar. So these two details will be there. But how to write the condition that I'm going to get back and I'm going to stop this particular thing? Let's make use of while so that we can move ahead, right? So I'll write while there is a next method available on your result set that gives us the Boolean response, whether your entire part of the result set what we are talking about, right? So it will go to the new line, new line, new line. And if there is a new line in table, it will give us the Boolean data response true. If there is no, while we'll simply break, we'll get the Boolean response as false and we'll stop there only, right? So this is just a mechanism or a loop that we have created so that we can jump on our records. But at the same time, we need to print all those records as well, right? So like one by one, we have to print them. The part of each and every record, taking that each and every record, we have to print that. So let me print all these things. Let me print all these things. So you can see that I'm making use of a print statement. And in my result set, my first thing is a string. First name is a string, right? And let's put up some gap. We know that the second thing is also going to be a string, or you can write all those things as string. That's not an issue. Anyhow, we are going to get print. Okay. So let's get that particular string as get string, and the column is second, right? So now we are dealing with the second column. In the third column also, let's put up that particular thing, get string 2. Here I need to have a plus, okay? And after this also, let's write the third. We only have 4 columns, so let stick to that, okay? Third, and after this, I'm going to have the get string, and the index will be 4 now. Okay, so if you carefully observe, we have the part of details written here till 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4 things will be printed here. And finally, you can, after printing this, okay, after print data, you can literally close your connection. That will be the last step. Okay. Close connection. So whatever connection that you have established, you can close that particular connection, right? So here I'm trying to close the connection as well. So these are what exactly the steps by which we are trying to get the data and we are trying to print it. Okay. So let us understand whether it is actually getting print or not. Our code is done. Our steps are written. The entire architecture that we have seen, keeping that thing in mind, we are trying to write all these steps and trying to execute it. Okay. So once I execute, let's see whether our database gets connect or not, and whether our data gets print or not, right? So you can typically observe there are 2 records which are getting print here, Amar Kumar and Arun Kumar, which are available here. Okay. So you can see there are 2 records, and those 2 records are getting print in my actual kind of console part here, right? You can see once I execute, both the records are getting print as it is, right? So a select operation on database we have performed, and this is going to give us the connectivity with this database, and you can express your things which are related to database connectivity like this. Okay. But yes, more number of things we can add, but due to time restrictions, we'll stop here, and thank you so much.